While you can't mate polygonal shapes concentrically in SOLIDWORKS, you can use other geometry associated with the polygon to create the references you need to properly create the concentric mate. There are a few ways to do this. One way to quickly get the references you need is by using the Polygon Sketch tool. Let me begin by showing you a few ways to create the references, and then I'll move on to showing you how you can mate polygons concentrically within an assembly. I'll start a new sketch on the top plane, and then I'll launch the Polygon tool from the Command Manager. I want this polygon to define the profile for an extrude, so I'll leave the For Construction checkbox cleared. Next, I can specify the number of sides. Let's use 8 to create an octagon. You can choose whether to use an inscribed circle or a circumscribed circle. You can choose either option here, and they'll have the same result when mating, because the center point of the polygon will always be the same. I'll click to create the center point of the polygon, and drag the cursor out to sketch the polygon. It's just like creating a circle. Now you can add dimensions and relations however you want to fully define the polygon, but my favorite two ways are to dimension either the circle or one of the edges, and then create a center line from the center point to one of the corner points, and give the center line either a vertical or horizontal relation. With the polygon defined, you can go on to extrude it, or whatever you need. I'll extrude the polygon to give it some thickness. Now, because the polygon has a construction circle already created within the sketch, that's all we really need to create the concentric mate. However, creating an axis is another really useful approach for adding the references needed for mating. I'll launch the Axis tool from the Reference Geometry dropdown. Now, to create the axis, I can either use the inscribed circle as the selection, or I can select the center point and either the top or bottom face of the model. Once the preview looks correct, simply click the green check to create the axis. Now, with all the references in place, let me switch over to an assembly file with some parts already created to show you how to create the concentric mates. Here in this assembly, I have two octagonal blocks and a rectangular block with a hole in it. Now, right now the rectangular block is fixed, and the octagonal blocks are completely free to move and rotate in every direction. If I launch the Mate tool, select the hole, and then one of the octagonal faces on the block, notice the only options I have here are tangent, lock, or distance. I can't make it concentric. I'll cancel out of the tool. In order to make the parts concentric, I'll have to use another reference. One way to do this is to expand the octagonal block in the Feature Manager tree, look for the polygon sketch used to create it, and when I find it, I'll click it and select Show. Now I can use the inscribed circle here to create the concentric mate. I'll launch the Mate tool, select the hole, and then the inscribed circle, and you can see I now have the concentric option. When you're finished up, simply hide the sketch. One thing to keep in mind is because you're using the sketch geometry as the mate reference, mates created like this can break easily in certain situations. Now this might work fine in a lot of situations, but if you find that the mate keeps breaking this way, you can use the axis instead. I'll create another concentric mate between the second block's axis and the hole. This method is a bit more robust. Also, just so you know, I could have just as easily created a mate between the two axes of the block to mate them as well. But if I tried doing that now, it would over-define the assembly.